Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SB Reacts where today we got ourselves a track from, I hope I'm not mispronouncing this, Asa Gibbs, the song titled Dandelions. And if we switch over to here, I forget if it's Asa or Asa, I think it's Asa. This is off for their upcoming album. I should also note that this is not the first time I've checked out their work, but it'd be good to check out more. We're going to listen through this track from start till finish and we're going to hear what we think. Got a music beat here out on the screen. Let's go. Let's do it. What have we got? What's happening today? Great panning of those elements around the stereo field for sure. Really interesting dynamic response to it. I mean, it's just the overall experience. There's individual components that are kind of easy to facilitate and understand. Interesting looping of those childlike crying and laughters. What are we listening for, though? Oh. Is it like a person's life flashing before their eyes? Is that why you've got the machine at the end that starts beating and then everything kind of finishes? It's an interesting angle. We're going to talk about it more, though, and the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Asa Gibbs titled Dandelions. In this section, I'm going to provide an overall song analysis of everything from lyrics and vocals all the way through studio production, as well as any applicable constructive critique. And then finally, my general thoughts from a listener's perspective. But before we go any further, what do we think this track is about? I should know that I've kindly been provided a copy of the lyrics by Asa Gibbs for this review, so that's great. It's good to have. We have a look through them. She's on a path dressed in camouflage. She's walking down the steps like it's a marathon, and the wind keeps screaming self-sabotage. That's interesting. So she's maybe not sort of paying attention to their surroundings, you know, for better or worse. Dandelions tattered into camouflage and the fuzzies blow away all of her Amazon. And the wind keeps screaming self-sabotage, but you can't hear it flying up to the man upon. I do, just before I go any further, that it's not a common thing for Asa Gibbs to have lyrics or vocals in their tracks, so I'm appreciative of it to kind of add more of a story to this. I don't mind when it's ambiguous, but just having a little bit more of a guide can add a bit more sort of like pleasure to the experience, so to speak, depending, of course, on where you go with the tale. A bit more pleasure to the experience, of course, depending on where you go with the tale, you know. But just the imagery of like the sky hangs all the photos on a fishing line, and they shimmer for a second, then they're left behind. I mean, and the clouds keep folding petals into swans. This is some of the most beautiful poetry that I think I've read within a lyric sheet in quite a while. She's talking to a stranger through the telephone. She's walking through the maze that was her home. So the rhyme scheme works, telephone into home, well, that's good. So you got vivid imagery plus a sort of a cadence that's satisfying to listen to. And then we kind of, you know, we look at this and go, she's talking to a stranger through a phone, her son left and now she's alone. Do you feel what you feel when you're, do you love, what you feel when you're alone? The silence in the background. Do you feel how you live when you're alone? Oh, the silence in the background. So this potentially could be about their mother, maybe their mother not being there anymore or something along those lines, like leaving their memories behind there, flying away like dandelions. It's this kind of nature aesthetic where you can imagine this person walking along this pathway and sort of going by their sides and seeing their life before their eyes before they fade out. And it's sort of discussing what it's like to be alone in that situation, wanting to talk to strangers but not being sure who they are. See, I still feel as if it's like not completely transparent about what this piece is about. You've just got to kind of read through the lines and understand it. And I think that what it's trying to discuss is a person who is in their own head, their own sort of imagination or place, their own perspective of it is as vivid as is described, only for us to question whether that, you know, our realities are real when we are alone, or whether things disappear and they never really were there in the first place, or whether it happens over time. It's an interesting track, though. I'm not going to say too much more about it because I risk rambling and or sort of going too far down a rabbit hole there. But what I kind of like is, again, the fact that there were vocals in this, that there was additional storytelling. Granted, they were quite subtle in the mix, partially because of how loud some of the surrounding elements were. But I don't necessarily mind that. I think that if you can go searching for it, or if it's worth listening to, then you'll be satisfied with it and maybe even interact with some of the deeper elements of the piece that aren't immediately obvious by the more perceptible ones. I think ultimately we seemed comfortable in our range. We had a nice texture and timbre to our voice. The notes came through plainly when they did. And regardless of whether or not you could explicitly hear the words, it's just more that the actual note choices resonated neatly within the chamber of the piece. And there was never a moment where it felt awkward or dissonant. And there's like an interesting rhythm to it as well then, with a mixture of those sort of spoken sort of rapped parts and some of the sung parts as well in different parts of our range there. It's nice to have different ways of communicating in addition to different pitches. It's great that we can do both. And we also have some additional sort of like call and response takes there with a bit of chorus or filtering or flanging on them or something along those lines to make them sound a bit more synthetic and a bit more sort of like separated, the main sort of vocal parts with the reverb tails on them. It's just nice to have it be, again, both part of the ether of the piece, but whilst also, again, as I mentioned, giving further direction there. And it's just us continue to develop our craft, and if we're including vocals within this track, it at least infers there's a potential for more storytelling within the album, which I feel will be positive. You know, it's just a bit of extra icing on the cake. The track itself is 3 minutes 17. It's through composed. You know, that's a given with a lot of Asa Gibbs music. And I think that that's just kind of makes it seem like more of a journey. When we discuss what we do within the actual storytelling and stuff, the music does represent that. I think it's great. You've just got the sound of the room at the beginning, which is something that is consistent with the end of the piece there, but you have that bell curve of a piece in between the start and the finish there, that progression we go on. You have these guitars that come in with these really sort of fascinating, relatively complex arpeggios and fingerstyle patterns there, these delays that kind of bounce off of each other there in a sort of a way that doesn't want to let you in too much. I like the fact that it's ambiguous because it allows more of a focus on some of the stuff that is a bit more sort of blunt about it. Some of the shimmers and shuffles that we have in terms of a faux percussion are good because they're just a different sound to what we had prior with the guitar there. We're continuing to develop and staircase it a bit with new things and sort of spread different parts of it around the stereo field to fill or surround the listener with the music. It's also cool to have the hand drums as well that we have there playing sort of rhythms and patterns that allow the listener to more easily follow along with what the guitar is doing. As we have a more of a kind of established drum kit or drum group coming like at least around the 40-second mark, it's good because it has this kind of lo-fi hip-hop-ish kind of tone there with a mixture of hi-hats, kicks and snares that's sort of instantly recognizable and gives more sort of credence to what's going on with the vocal style at that point with the rapping there. I like that there's that connection there. Alongside these flurries of synth sequences being kind of extremely vibrant, should I say, around the sides there, and just they decorate really neatly, and there's a sense of wonderment that comes from how they sparkle there, and the fact that they're not opinionated in terms of the triads that they're representing. They sort of more glow than anything. A lot of the emotional nuance comes from those guitar riffs there, but just, to have, again, the vocals be more of a rhythmic device there, and therefore making it more subtle, especially alongside those distorted basses. It's just a fascinating combination of elements. And it's just also things like how, at the beginning of the track, before things start to build, you have things slowly go from left to the right. It's these moments where you really appreciate that we are trying to provide a compelling experience, even from the get-go, even with less, because we understand the less can be more. It might just be a little bit stagnant if we just have the same positioning for everything, and don't sort of mess around with it a bit. But it's also like the shimmer and shuffle and noise of parts there. It's not just that we have harmonic or melodic or rhythmic elements there. We have things just making a sound. They're adding a bit more sort of body and spice to the experience there. Sometimes in tracks you can mainly just have everything be relatively performative, but sometimes the ambience is important too, especially with how things go with the heavy distortion and bit crushing of certain elements there. It adds a sense of things being kind of mutated or otherworldly in contrast to some of the more beautiful elements of it. It's just an interesting juxtaposition there. And as we push things really intensely around 205 there, you're just kind of left in a position where you're both sort of appreciating the production quality in terms of how they're able to get things to sound the way they were with the design effects chain decisions. But you're also left in a state of wonderment and almost sort of like incredulity, because you're not really, even if you had heard the story clearly, you're not sure why there are the children laughters there. Maybe that those children laughing are the last things we remember before we kind of go. And it's a very sort of bittersweet experience, because I have a lot of respect for the music that I'm listening to, but I also feel an innate sense of sadness at the possibility or the hypothetical of this being about the loss of like a loved one or a child or something like that. It's just such a bold move to have a lot of this track at the end simply be room noise or nothing there, with the silent beep, that Foley, that sample of that machine at the hospital there. And you do really feel a sense of loss, even though you're not sure if that is the case. I think for the music to be that affecting whilst being that mysterious is a masterstroke on behalf of Asa Gibbs. And while there is an innate sense of musicality to it, I think this track is genuinely, it's more effective because of the pathway that it provides. If it had had a set chord progression the entire time and kind of gone down and gone up, it still would have been great. But it's that it does these unexpected things and plays with dynamic range so inextricably that you are left sort of with a great sense of respect for it, alongside sort of more sophisticated in a sense that are unconventional textures, but just intelligent choices there to add a sense of warped kind of disillusionment with it. It's more about the experience rather than trying to tell the story through a set chord progression. There is a bittersweet, almost melancholic extended major tonality to a lot of those chords that you have there, even with most of the instruments within this mix playing singular notes. It's not a song where we're listening to it and trying to it's not a teeny bopper track by any means. It's something that is clearly quite important to Asa Gibbs through the gravity of what is presented with the specifics combinations there, the time that we take to insert and position things in the stereo field as well as the frequency spectrum, the way that we amalgamate those different elements and manage to encompass that emotional nuance in a way that kind of invites you to want to listen to the lyrics to learn more, as opposed to enjoying the sound of them. But again, we have both here. But ultimately, I feel like the choice of keeping a similar baseline chord progression across the entirety of the piece was sensible. We might have had some chromatics or sort of notes a little bit kind of like dissimilar to what we might have expected there, but ultimately it was reasonably well behaved in terms of how the progressions went between each other. If there were moments of uncertainty, it was because of how the different instruments rubbed up against each other more than anything like that, because of the tone choices that we used. Studio recording, mixing, and mastering, though, is fantastic. Really satisfied with, again, the immense dynamic range, the difference between the quiet and louds there, as well as the vocals being presented in the way they were, the use of reverbs, delays, echoes, sort of alternate panning, and automation of the panning of certain elements there within the stereo field was cool. If there were resonant frequencies, they were clearly deliberate, and just the choice of having those bit crushed, distorted parts for force there to kind of push against you. It's almost a stereoscopic thing, or like a dimensional thing in terms of the leveling and mixing there that I appreciate. It again is quite promising for the album, especially given the type of music that Asa Gibbs makes and from my experience with their work. But ultimately nice and loud bus compression limiting his handle, but it's also great for things to come down, have the subtlety of that beat, make you go searching for the lyrics, as well as for the, again, the quieter sounds. And for it then to just kind of end like that, I'm very impressed. No applicable constructive critique. And then finally, from a general listener's perspective, I hear this track and I feel confident and comfortable with what the album is going to become there. It's a complicated piece. It's something that is quite similar with a lot of Asa Gibbs' work, but I think that's important. I think that's important because the last thing we want is to make music that's easily digestible and potentially forgettable unless we can form an innate immediate connection to the listener. If you give them something to chew on and make them wonder why they're trying to figure it out, especially with genres like this where they are a little bit more opaque, I feel like that can be a really positive experience. And Asa Gibbs, if nothing else, nails that. It's just great that, again, we're feeling more comfortable putting ourselves forward on the mic. So good stuff. Because thank you for watching my review of this track from an ex named Asa Gibbs titled Dandelions. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via their various social medias. I'm sure this beyond the digital stream platforms. And stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as you need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SP Reacts. Spiderhands out.